Excellent. Shiro, babe, what's your deal? Come on, it's question time. Hi guys, it's Q&A time. Let's do some Q&A. I've got a couple of questions from the chat. The first one is, why is my cat being such a pain? Do you have any thoughts about how they used character and clothing design to give us an impression of each student? This is a great question.
Yeah.
Because like the characters have a distinct personality, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they went bold with that, for sure. They sort of. I think it's cool that they did that. They had the Vaughn, who is literally like sort of very buttoned up and actually with straps crossing her at her dress in sort of interesting ways.
Yeah.
And with I mean, just like the shapes of the clothes are very over the top in that way. I think they went pretty fantastical with that.
Yeah, very much. Like very in an anime sort of a style, which is, I think that's part of the Hanako brand, or at least that the style that they have cultivated over the years. But yeah, I mean, like they hit it very hard. They go to an extreme. I'm not kidding when I say Vaughn like looks military.
Yeah.
And that's why I was sort of... I mean, I guess I interpreted that as a, like, regimented... I don't know. It turned into a, like, hierarchical thing, where her military character is all about, like, she is below you on the hierarchy, and so there are things that she's supposed to do, and there's ways that social interaction is supposed to work. Which makes sense.
Her responses bore that out, right?
Right, exactly. That's So I guess I didn't understand how to treat her 100% just from her look. Mm-hmm. But her look absolutely does reinforce sort of what the impression that I get from her dialogue.
Yeah. I'm trying to think so I noticed it the most with the ones that we comment on Vaughn and Thighs.
Right.
I keep like Thighs, I guess, is her name.
That's her name now.
Right.
That's her name to me.
Yeah. But I'm trying to think if I noticed it as much in the other characters. I feel like they what was the name of the silent character? I don't know. Like, you know who I'm talking about, right? The one who started who just ...
Yeah.
There, it seemed like they were doing a lot less of that storytelling and relying more on that moment to start up. But maybe if we go back...
that's true. But she does have... I think that she's got like a very the shy girl anime hair.
Yeah.
Like I think that
totally playing off of anime tropes in a big way, and they know it, and they're really good in that. They're good at doing that. You can tell that they know those tropes inside and out.
Right, exactly. And they sort of expect, I think, the audience to know that too.
Yeah, totally. I didn't see much where they were yet. Now we're on week 1, but where they were really subverting many of those tropes.
And I think,
that might come later.
I think the point is that, as sometimes happens when you and I get together, we got distracted and talked about a bunch of things, and didn't actually get like what you might call far into the game.
One might say we didn't get far.
We got through the tutorial. Definitely got through the tutorial.
Absolutely. We found some protractors.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And then 2 hours went by. We can go next time we do this. if we need something to move us along at certain points, we can definitely do that.
No, that's true, but it's also fun to just talk about whatever comes up. So I have no problem with that either. I mean, honestly. So, okay, so, I mean, I think that, my answer to this question is a little bit limited by the amount of content that we saw, but I think that it's a really good observation that the game hits that really hard and uses a visual style to reinforce the very strong, stereotypical or archetypal, let's say, characters that it presents in the student council officers. But I think we would probably see more of that as we went further and got to know those characters a little bit better. It's also interesting, like, I'm just thinking, the fact that Vaughn, like, insists on calling you captain is also a very military thing, right? Like, I feel like, like, that's what that character is all about.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I think it's smart that they led with that, because I think it was the most interesting interaction with your character.
Right.
So far. I mean, I know that'll change. But yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Jamie, I'm gotta initiate you. Jetlag is a member of our chat who has a question that she asks of every game, which is a really interesting way to interrogate sort of every game. And the question is, would this game be better if it had a dragon in it? Oh, would this game be better if it had a dragon in it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that I'm not a put a dragon in everything sort of guy.
Okay.
I'm really not. But sword and sorcery it up.
Right.
This game might be better if it had a dragon in it, because that would be that would be really expected. That would really get the noir school. I think it would be better. So, like, if a dragon was helping to investigation, is that where we're going?
That's part of the question. I think is like what does that actually mean in the context of this game? Where would a dragon appear?
What a great question. I mean, so it's sort of like this is a make your own question where you've succeeded if you've made the game better by putting the dragon in the right place.
Yeah, that's how I like to interpret it.
Okay, so how do we make this game better with a dragon?
Yes.
I think a dragon as a regular suspect in the murders, the investigation, like, it's always like 4 students and a dragon.
Yeah, right. And the same dragon
in the school who happens to take a be in intro to English lit or whatever in this case.
Well, I feel like maybe the dragon sort of gets called out because they're so different. That it's the 4 students who are in that class, and also the dragon, because we don't totally trust the dragon. The dragon like could be behind everything. Yeah,
yeah. Like you're the dragon is such a good scapegoat.
Exactly.
You have 4 students and a dragon, and there's someone burnt to a crisp.
Who did it?
Everyone's gonna look at the dragon. Yeah.
Who could it be? Well, okay, so
and I think it would be especially good if the dragon was not every mission, but like just shows up sometimes.
Just occasionally, there's a dragon.
2 times the size of everyone else, taking up the entire supply closet.
Right. Yes. You can't send the dragon to the supply closet because it's too many dragons for the supply closet.
Totally.
Just one.
I think dragon as a suspect really works. Dragon as a member of your team, I don't know, less fun somehow.
Okay.
my finger on.
Okay. Yeah. No, I can see that. What about a sort of world where, if you fail to solve the case, then suspicion will naturally fall on the dragon, and it's your responsibility.
I saw this in chat, and I think this is where I'm at. Downplay the hell out of it was, I think, the phrase I saw. Just basically, yeah, there's a dragon at this school. Like, right? this dragon, like, it's like sometimes the dragon did it.
Sometimes they didn't. Yeah.
Like, if the dragon is just sort of a character who's like, look, man, like, it's not
okay.
always.
But what's
like,
amazing about this?
Dragon.
What's amazing about this is that, if we played the game enough, I think we would discover that all of the other characters who aren't on your team are procedurally generated characters who have like random stats and randomly configured profiles, and we've got the school is full of like randomly created different every time characters
and one dragon. Yes, so 99 character pictures and one dragon who's sometimes really good at stealth.
Right. Yeah. Like, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a good.
That's good. I like that.
The game is a little better. Just a little bit better.
Just a little bit better.
Yeah.
Hanako, take note. Just a suggestion. Just a little bit better. Okay. Jamie, so I know that there's not a lot that you can say, and so feel free to, we can just move on to another question. But there is a question about just asking you to talk about the game that you're working on.
Yeah. So the game is called Guildings. We announced last month, a little mysteriously, with I'm working on it with a friend of both Sean and mine, with Asher Volmer, and a very talented team. There's 7 of us. I'm not gonna list everyone, but yeah, we announced last month with a couple pictures. A couple, like, just a little poem about what the game is about. The game is still a ways off, and so it's a game about the stuff that I can say about it is it's a game about a group of teenage adventurers. It's going to have elements of a road trip in it. We're trying to do something interesting with mobile and narrative, and do a different sort of adventure game than we think you've seen. I don't want to say too much more about it because we are testing out all sorts of cool things right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very cool. I love the idea. I mean, it's a dream. It's a dream that we've, like, you and I specifically have been chasing for a long time. The sort of like updated adventure game.
Yes.
A different kind of adventure game.
Yeah, I mean, Sean, we've been working. I guess it's almost since I've known you. We've been playing around with experiments that bend the adventure genre in different ways, and it's something that I've worked on professionally in different capacities. When I was at the Odd Gentleman, I was playing around with that a bit.
Yep.
At Disney, I got to play with it this much. I mean, I was working in children's apps at Disney, so I was really trying to make help them make whatever they needed, and I was not able to do as much experimenting there with narrative. But I'm really glad to be back into it, and I think I'm very excited to share more with people, but we're still so far off that I don't want to. No,
absolutely. Yeah. I don't want to talk about specifics of Guildlings because I think that, it's going to be very exciting, but it will.
Yeah, there are going to be some really nice surprises.
Totally.
And we're going to announce and our second update. We're doing slow updates because it's just 7 of us. We're working very hard on the actual content, but we have another update coming out soon where we'll sort of put a little bit more out into the world about it.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to that. I mean, I guess I sort of want to jump off of this to the question that has been on my mind a little bit because of Mostly Walking, but Mostly Walking, it turns out, is not the kind of show where we get into a real discussion about this sort of thing. But for you and me, and you're working on what you describe now as an adventure game, like what does that mean? What does adventure game actually, like, how do you define that genre?
Oh man, I guess there's a narrow definition and a broad definition, right? I mean, I would say the game is a fantasy. The game is going to be a sort of fantasy adventure, and that's how we've described it. But I don't think it follows all of the conventions of the genre at all. I would say, okay, here's one way I'd go to it. I think that genre was born to some degree, twisted and taken in very different and interesting places. But I date that genre back to like Colossal Cave Adventure, but also to the Atari game Adventure, right?
Yeah, Adventure.
The Atari game Adventure is a very narrative light adventure game, but it's a series of locks and keys set throughout a maze.
Oh yeah, no, that's a fantastic point.
I mean, that describes a lot of what goes on in games. I think at its heart, an adventure game is a narrativizing of this sort of labyrinth of locks and keys.
That's right? Super. No, that's fantastic. I mean, and when we think about, like, in an adventure game, what we call a puzzle, I mean, it is almost always this lock and key based system, right?
Yeah, it's do I have the right thing on my keychain?
Right.
Do I know the shape of the lock? Like it's a lot of those adventure games boil down to that. Now with that said, that's why. So we're going to be playing with that. But with that said, I haven't yet decided whether we should call our game an adventure game.
Right. No, totally. Because that potentially carries a lot of weight with it, and you know, from what I know about what you're doing, you're trying to do something new.
But though that lock and key structure, it stretches through so many different games, right? I mean, that's there too, which Zelda is an action adventure. Zelda fills the space in between with these very interesting, different sorts of puzzles.
I feel like in Zelda Zelda as an action adventure game compared to like a straight adventure game, especially, you know, looking circa. I mean, I guess I'm thinking about my childhood. I'm thinking about like the 90s.
You're thinking about old Zelda, not
when anybody says the word Zelda to me, I immediately think Link to the Past.
You're immediately Link to the Past is
like that's what I think.
Zelda choice too. Right? I love the 3D Zeldas, but
they're great. They're super. It's just like I can't help it. That's what's in my head.
And that game is way closer to the Atari adventure game in some ways, right?
Yeah. In with a couple different versions. Yeah, totally. And the way that I think about that is like there are locks all over the place, and a lot of them are optional. Like you don't have to unlock all of the locks. But for pretty much every lock, there is one key. Like you have to have the correct key to open that lock. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, that's something that adventure games have played with more since, right? It played with this question of, and certainly it's something that when we were experimenting with some narrative stuff, we played around with, well, what if there are, I mean, suddenly I'm wondering, is stacking an adventure game exactly? Because stacking is
that's a great question.
You know, genres are just ways that we put games in boxes to understand them better, right? So
totally.
Stacking definitely has a lock and key structure, but it has several different things can fit the lock. There are always 3 verbs, I think, in stacking to fit the lock. You've played stacking?
I have not played all the way through it, but I've played enough of it to know sort of the basic mechanics.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating game. It's a really interesting, different take on the adventure puzzles, and I hadn't really thought about how related it is to some of the stuff that you and I have done in the past. That's trying to iterate on the adventure game by like messing with that single lock and key dynamic.
Yeah.
Because it absolutely does do that.
It does, and I have a feeling, I don't know, we'd have to talk to someone over Double Fine, but I have a feeling that very early that was a key tenet of the design, a key sort of pillar of the design.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you really see in that game that's interesting is the challenges that come up with trying to make multiple solutions for a puzzle. And one of the big challenges from a player point of view that you can see the response to this in stacking is, hey, wow, people feel like they're missing out on the other options. Right. If you present 3 options and only let someone do one,
oh my God.
Stacking solution to that was to turn most, if not all of them, into just this achievement system where it's like, solve this puzzle 9 times because we believe that you are perfectionists at heart, right? And want to find out all the solutions, which sort of,
or at least we want to accommodate. I see. That actually takes away from the experience of.
Well, for someone who takes away from I think the way that it was implemented, probably the right decision. But one of the things I like, for instance, about so I have lots of different, the Telltale games, I think, have their thing. I have definitely I love them, but have a mixed opinion of at moments they do certain things well and not.
Yeah, sure, totally.
But one of the things that they do a great job of, that I think stacking didn't do as good a job of, is getting me as a player out of my OCD, right? Creating a situation where I had to leave options behind and learn to accept that and improvise. And I think to make multiple options work, you need to do some work to get players out of that headspace of I can do it all.
To accept the idea that there are you need
to set that expectation early, or else multiple options are going to feel to players like failed options.
Right. Yeah. That's a great point.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of games that have done that well for me, and in addition to the Telltale games. Well, I mean, so when we talk about Telltale games, we're really talking about
we're talking about the later. We're talking about
what's the zombie? Game? Walking Dead. We're talking about The Walking Dead
and things in the Walking Dead genre. Basically, I am talking about Walking Dead, Game of Thrones. The game of heartbreaking decisions.
Right. Exactly. Because the one iteration back of the Telltale engine was the Sam & Max games, which. Did you ever play the Telltale Sam & Max games?
I played a little bit of. You're just like KOTOR. I'm not going to be able to let this down with you. I played some of Sam & Max and enjoyed it, and then as you also were, suddenly I was in grad school and I had to play all the games. I was in grad school for games, no time to play games.
Right,
so I
of course.
Lost my momentum on Sam & Max.
Of course.
But yeah, that's a classic adventure game done episodically. And the one I remember playing was Homestuck, which is another classic adventure game done episodically that I think was maybe, I don't know if that was quite at the level of Sam & Max. I had some fun with it, but
yeah. But and so
not Homestuck. Not Homestuck.
The Homestar Runner.
Homestar Runner. Yeah.
2
very different things.
Yep. In some ways, absolutely.
Yeah.
But again, that was sort of that was an updated take on the adventure game genre that leaves intact some of those core principles of the adventure game
Totally.
It's actually a very linear experience. Like there's only
Yeah.
one solution to all of the puzzles, and you have to solve all of the puzzles.
Yeah, and you have to get through all the rooms. You have to basically find your way through this maze
Right.
of areas, situations, and to be dorky about it, affordances, but like usually items, right?
Yeah, right, absolutely. Yeah.
I think there is really something interesting about this move, and I think it has to do also with this sort of this thing that's come up more recently of games being a little like sort of modern games cutting into the power fantasy notion of what games have done for a long time. I think it has to do like this notion that you are playing through an event. You cannot have, a classic adventure game. You solve,
Right.
You ultimately solve everything. You ultimately figure out the right solutions, and you've done everything you need to do, and success. The Telltale games, they sometimes go overboard with it. I think with the sort of the Sophie's choices, but but they're games where you cannot do it all, where you have to choose between two valid outcomes.
Right.
And one of the things that is cool about that is they're a little bit more like a deck of tarot, like a deck of like something that is reflecting back to you something about your personality, which I think is kind of cool. Right.
Which that's one of the things that I find most stressful about those games is not that it's ushering me down a path that is only going to show me partial potential content that I'm not going to see all the endings because I can only see one ending, but more that I'm sort of freaked out at every moment about what do the choices that I'm making say about me as a person.
You find that, so that's definitely something that you're saying you find that fact stressful.
Yeah, and it is in, like, for example, The Walking Dead, it's often used in a way that is very effective, right? Because the aesthetic of that game is very stressful. I am meant to feel stressed by it, and so
totally, it works for that, even though it's not an experience I want to have all the time.
Right.
I really enjoyed season 1. But I'll be honest, I didn't pick up season 2 because I was sort of just thinking, why am I going to throw myself into that situation again?
Yeah, exactly. There's enough stress in my life.
Yeah, for sure.
And
that's the problem of those. I'm very curious. I want to play Tales from the Borderlands is sitting on my queue.
I've heard that's really good.
Sean, that's the next game that we should play.
We should play that.
Because it's using because it's something that I think is really interesting is doing choice in a lighter way,
right?
Doing meaningful choice in something that has comedy to it.
Yeah.
Unless you're not feeling Tales from the Borderlands.
No. Well, so my biggest hesitation with Tales from the Borderlands is, have you played the Borderlands games?
I sucked at Borderlands for like half an hour with some friends.
Okay, so
I haven't played through. I haven't played them a lot.
Like I have literally I have zero exposure to Borderlands, and I have seen, like, in the ether, in the pop culture, people make reference to, like, specific things, like types of characters and stuff that like I have no idea what they're talking about, but it makes it feel like there's a fairly richly defined world behind Borderlands that I don't know. And so is it okay, like, can I play Tales from the Borderlands? Am I gonna get it?
I'm not. I don't think I need someone who's played Borderlands extensively and Borderlands 2, Tales from the Borderlands to say whether it's necessary.
Whether that's the case.
I mean, my guess is that they are going to give you a way in. From what I've played of Borderlands, it's an interesting world, but it's not. I don't think it's quite Game of Thrones. Maybe I'm wrong here. Where you are not going to enjoy that space without the intrigue.
Yeah.
But maybe I don't know. Are there opinions popping up in chat?
Well, Kyla says there are some references to other games, but Tales stands fairly well on its own. So,
is that Kyla? Okay.
Yeah. So, so that's a good idea, Jamie. That sounds like that would be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do one more question from Kyla.
Yeah.
The skills plus dice roll problem solving is very simple and upfront, as opposed to the long live the queen method, which was very abstract and hidden. Do you prefer this straightforward style, or would you rather some ambiguity in why you won or lost a challenge? So you haven't played Long Live the Queen. I've only played a little bit of it. So I don't remember a lot of the specifics of how that was made ambiguous, but I think it's just that it doesn't show you. Like you have some stats, and then you are presented with challenges, and you either succeed or you don't, and you're sort of, you are given to understand that it's because of your stats that you succeeded or didn't, but it's not like clearly explained how that happened.
I don't mind. I really like calculated risk in games, where I get to see the odds. I like that. I don't like it when true randomness outweighs my input.
Right.
And that happens in some games. I mean, like there are a lot of board games where I get to the end and feel like I basically had just the most complicated game of craps.
Right.
I like with some cool narrative stuff along the way, but where I sort of question whether what I did had as much impact as the luck of my rolls.
Yeah, I had sort of a harrowing moment when as a very small child, I learned how to play the game of War. You know this game? With cards, and you match off, and when you get the same thing, you like go to war and blah blah blah, and it wasn't until I was much older and like played it with somebody that I realized like there's zero. It's a coin flip. That is an extremely drawn out coin flip. Between two people, because it's just what cards you draw. Eventually there will be a winner.
I mean, Candyland's also
Candyland, same thing. Same thing.
I mean, though and Candyland, it's great because it is a way to teach kids the procedure of gameplay.
Right.
Like that's not a bad thing.
Right.
But,
totally.
But I don't like it. I don't like having a coin flip super heavily disguised, right? Right.
Well, I mean, like War, when somebody proposed to me, "Hey, do you want to play?" Like we were on a 24-hour train ride. Like we got some time to kill. Do you want to play War? I said, sure. That sounds great. That sounds like a good idea. I like card games. Yeah. And then we got into it a little bit, and it sort of like dawned on me what was happening. And I had no interest in playing War anymore.
Sure. How long did you have to play to the end of this game of War? Because those games
they can go for a while.
This coin flip can be a long coin flip, man.
It really super can. No, yeah. I am generous to myself in my memory, and it didn't take me that long to sort of catch on to how the game was played.
Did you flip the table once it happened? Were you doing?
Well, it was literally bolted to the floor of a fast-moving train. So no actual table flip. No, it was difficult.
Did you But you ran for the hills. You did not politely complete this game. You were like,
right, exactly. No, this is no, sir. This is not my cup of tea.
Yes. I don't go in for these sorts of games, sir.
That's exactly. This is undignified. So okay, but I think there's two things that are happening here that are interesting, because I believe as Kyla is pointing out, and as I remember, in Long Live the Queen, there's not actually a random component. It's just you have stats, and your stats are matched up against a challenge, but the threshold values for the challenge are never revealed to you. So you know that like this is, or you can infer that a challenge is going to test your, dignity or whatever.
I see. So there's more hidden information. There's more sort of back end figuring out how the system works.
Exactly. All of that information is hidden. So even if it is deterministic, it's hidden. Whereas in this game, there is absolutely a sense that randomness plays a part.
Yes.
But all of it is extremely transparent.
Yeah, this game is incredibly transparent about its systems. Yeah. I would say it's almost shockingly transparent about its systems.
Which is sort of part of the board game aesthetic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Well, you don't have a choice in most board games,
right?
You don't have a digital curtain with a bunch of calculations to hide behind. Somebody is messing with those numbers most of the time.
Yeah. And so unless you call out a roll and sort of impose secrecy upon like a dungeon master or something like that, then by necessity everybody has a fairly complete understanding of how the system works.
Yeah, whereas a lot of digital games, great games, you infer over time what's going on. I mean, and great players figure out those algorithms and essentially have no one's going to have those exact odds in their head, right? But I think exposure puts an approximation of sort of that sort of thing up in your head.
Absolutely. Okay, so and then we're going to end on this note because this is fascinating. So Thanarod wants to follow up on that idea that like, so specifically in Long Live the Queen, there are these hidden requirements, but they're static. They are predetermined, which means that when you're playing the game, all of that information is hidden, but it is theoretically knowable. And so if you are a person who is connected to the internet, it is actually knowable. So given the idea that a game, picture a game like this, but with that set of systems where, all of that information is obscured and there's no randomness involved.
Yeah.
Would you play that game? First of all, like
there's all of the info's obscured. Let me just see if I've got this. All the info's obscured. There's no randomness involved, but basically, game FAQs exists.
Yeah.
That's the premise.
That's the premise. So in that premise, do you play the game? And if you do you play blind, or do you look up what those thresholds are, and under what circumstances, I guess, would you do that?
Oh man. Well, I bet we each have our own answer to that. Do you want to go first? Or
yeah, sure. So I mean, I absolutely would play the game. I have no problem playing, literally playing Long Live the Queen, the game that works this way. And I would definitely play it blind. I would find much more enjoyment in playing it blind for a significant amount of time. But if I can absolutely imagine, okay, so real world example. I am currently engaged in a weeks long game of the Kittens game. Have you heard of this?
I have
familiar
not.
with the Kittens game? The Kittens game is sort of the hot new, except not really that hot, incremental game. It's the new idle game.
Oh, okay.
It's the new
I've fallen into idle games before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So me too.
Okay, so stay away from the Kittens game.
Yeah, that's probably good
game?
advice. So, I mean, it's an idle game like any other. You start out as a kitten in a catnip forest, and you start gathering catnip, and then you turn it into wood, and you build houses, and houses attract other kittens.
Okay. So very much cookie clicker. Candy box.
It reminds me a lot.
The one that I spent too much time on.
Yeah, totally. It reminds me a lot of A Darkened Room, which was my favorite of them, I think.
Well, I mean that was a different game disguised as an idle game. I would.
Well, maybe that's why it was my favorite one, because I enjoyed the idle game
mechanics throughout that.
Right. Yeah.
That starts incredibly simple.
But it is this idle game at its core, I feel like, right?
Sure. Yeah. At its core, it's a timer-based game. I think most of the things I'd really call idle games pride themselves on their lack of on the fact the only choice is which thing to sort of boost as you're rapidly it's basically like making a factory. Right. How do I make the most efficient factory so I can end this wonderful torture quicker?
Right. Exactly. So but the nice thing about A Dark Room, in addition to the fact that it sort of like adds twists and turns to the idle game as a genre, was that it had an ending. Like you could like really. And I guess a lot of these probably have an ending, but it had a reachable ending. Like it had like I got to the ending of that game. The point of it was to play through it. Right, exactly. The point of it
was not to
play it forever.
Games, I think most of these games are this implicit challenge, this like carrot getting pulled farther away.
Right, exactly. The point of adventure
the game is
capitalist
daring you to beat it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not. It's a loaded game. We might be off topic on this question.
Is there such a thing?
You're right. We're always on topic.
The kittens game anyway is the second type. Like it just goes on forever, and it prides itself on continually increasing in complexity, like past the point where you would expect it to, even if you had played Cookie Clicker. And sort of knew that was a thing, and so
it does a little bit of that darkroom stuff.
It does a lot.
There's interesting twists, and you're just wondering.
But the interesting twists are only in that like your society becomes more technologically advanced and more complex as it grows.
How far into Cookie Clicker did you get, Sean?
Well, yeah, right. So same thing, but it does it. I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but it does it like even more than Cookie Clicker. The idea behind
it the feeling of depth. That
exactly. That's what it's going for. That's what it's trying to do. And so, like Cookie Clicker or especially A Dark Room, it sort of gets. A lot of its experiences around the mystery of you start off with one button that you can click, and then that opens up more and more options, and eventually now I've got a lot of things where I have to make like real decisions about what do I spend my at this moment limited resources on in order what's going to actually help boost my economy the fastest.
But I would say that those are games that have actually solved for the thing that's being described in Long Live the Queen. Maybe not, but it sounds like Long Live the Queen has a system of some complexity, right? That you need to come to and learn. That you need to come to. It's a little opaque, and either you will be. So I'll tell you, when I play a game like that, it needs to be metered out correctly. And one thing that sounds like kittens are that basically one of the things that I think marks a successful idle game is they're games that they're brilliant at metering out your options, at metering out your mechanics so that you actually do get into this super complex system of options, but you are introduced to them one by one, right? You understand
Totally.
in this totally linear way. I find, I mean, this question of are you willing to learn the opaque system is very much a games learning question in all sorts of games. I find I will go to game FAQs, or like go look up what is going on here at the point where either I feel that I've failed the game or the game has failed me. That's really like blurry line, or where I feel that I am truly done with the game, and that's my equivalent of losing credits, right?
Okay.
Hey, what did I miss? That's another possibility.
And so that resonates like pretty well with me. Although it's not, for me, it's not like necessarily a last hurrah, but it's a thing where I will typically only go to game FAQs or something like that, which I have done now 2 or 3 times for the Kittens game.
Sure.
For the Kittens game, in order to like, you know, because there are things that it takes a lot of time and resources to invest in that the game doesn't tell you what it's going to do. There are moments when sort of I feel like I've invested enough in this game. I am invested enough in this game that I want to play it and I care about it, and I have played a lot of it. But I have a limit to literally the amount of time and energy that I'm willing to put into a game. So a game like Long Live the Queen, like I will play through that if I've, you know, and I haven't, but I would play through that like a few times on my own blind, and that would be fun. And then I would start to get interested in like, okay, well, here's an option that I haven't been able to achieve. I'm not going to play through the game 30 times until I figure out the way to achieve it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's basically, I totally agree with you. I will do it at the point where, and sometimes I miss this point and I waste a lot of time, but it's at the point where my time is more valuable.
Right.
I know that the like small, basically where I'll need to spend a huge time still to learn a few little things.
Right.
And I just want to know them.
Right.
It's, you know, it is a balance.
But it's interesting. Like
it's not just Long Live the Queen. It's really all across games.
Yeah.
Question.
No, that's fascinating. How much? Yeah, it's a really, really interesting question. I think it's the question that, in a lot of ways, really devious, manipulative, free-to-play games are built on. Is that sort of, you know, you or at least you could build a free-to-play game on the idea that that you enjoy the game and you're having fun and you want to keep playing, but how much is your time worth?
I mean, that I think you've just described the basis of most free-to-play games. Right. I think it's done. I think a lot of them are made by, nice people, but who are really exploiting. Right. So a lot of them exploit that in a way that I think is not all that cool, frankly. But some of them do it in a way that's a little bit more respectful.
Right.
Those are the ones that I.
No, there are some really good free-to-play games out there.
Oh, totally, and there are a lot of different models for free-to-play games, and not all of them play off of this sort of, hey, not all of them play the same way off of this. What is your time worth? Are you gonna?
Right.
And I actually do think doing that with systems.
Yeah.
More with systems than with sort of, hey, like, you know, trying to build the way that they do them, which is just stretching out the time limits. Doing it more with learning would be really interesting. The challenge is just making enough complex content to make that work. That would be an interesting.
Would you
interesting and complex content?
How much money would you pay in a microtransaction to learn the specific stat requirement of this Long Live the Queen challenge that you're looking at right now?
If I have if I miraculously both have no internet connection and the ability to make that payment,
right?
Right?
Like,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I know. I think we've just discovered why this hasn't been made.
Fair enough.
Yeah, because the problem is, I mean, it's the problem too is paying for knowledge as opposed to just being able to get that for free. God, it feels like such a it's such an explicit, hey, you've lost.
Right.
You're not this it's like it's turning the payment into a game over screen.
Yeah, because it definitely like there is and some games try to get away from this.
And it's like the payment's an insult. Like, you're not smart enough figure this out.
Yeah, right, exactly. No, that's absolutely true.
Whereas I think most of them work right now on the just hey, you don't have enough time.
Right.
You want to get through this faster, and hey, the smart thing to do would be to pay us. That's what they try to equate. The successful ones try to like equate money with being a smart player, which is
right.
A weird thing too.
Right. Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, Jamie. This has been fantastic. Yeah, this was a blast.
Let's do it again.
I would love to do it again.
We could play more Black Closet. We could jump into Tales from the Borderlands. I like the idea. I think it would be interesting to play a game where we are forced to make choices quickly and where we have those. Oh my God! How do we do this? Maybe if my internet connection gets a little better.
Perfect. No, I love it. I think that's fantastic. But I'm also enjoying Black Closet and would play more of that. So let's leave it open for now, but it would be a blast to do this again.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for having me, man. I'd love to come back.
God, yeah. No, absolutely. I'm glad that we finally managed to arrange this. Okay, excellent. That's going to be it for us. I'm going to sign off, and thank you so much for watching, everybody. And I'll see you next time.
Man.
Have a good night.
Good night.